Joining us in the arena to talk about what this means is one of the Republicans' rising stars, Congressman Greg Walden. Thanks for joining us, Congressman.
Glad to be with you today.
Congressman, thank you for joining us, but I just got to ask you a question. It seems as though the Republicans in the Senate are holding us hostage. Every major piece of every issue that needs to be addressed for this nation is being held hostage to the one issue of tax cuts for the rich. Is that any way to govern right now?
Elliot, you're always good with the questions. Let me just say this. First of all, I'm in the House, not the Senate. Second of all, Americans spoke, and the referendum in the country was on the House. And the problem is that the White House and the Senate and the U.S. House, under the same leadership as before the election, hasn't gotten the message from the American people, and that is it's about jobs and cutting spending, not growing government. And so that's really the issue.
Congressman, with all due respect, certainly when it comes to the economy, and we'll talk about that in a moment, all of the multiple facets of that issue, take the START treaty. Former Secretary of State Colin Powell just left a meeting with the president saying passing the START treaty, ratifying the treaty, hugely important. Henry Kissinger, James Baker, Republican secretaries of state have said the same thing. How can it be that the Republican Party opposes this critical national security measure?
Well, Elliot, again, I think you have to look at what other agreements are on the sidebar there. I know Senator Kyle has been deeply involved in this issue and has raised some concerns privately and I think publicly about what else has maybe been negotiated on the side that we're not fully aware of.
Well, look, I know you're in the House, and I know that the letter to Senator Reid was corresponded to the senators. But even so, of course, John Boehner, has wanted to bring in this whole new spirit of cooperation. I just wonder, do you feel like that letter kind of undermines that spirit?
You know, what we're focused on is in the House. And what we're trying to do in the House is set up to run this House in a more open and transparent way than it's ever been run before.
One of the things I wanted to ask, though, is why is it not reasonable on the tax cut issue just to raise the threshold of the rich, say, to $1 million? Nobody feels sorry for people earning $1 million. But wouldn't that be a compromise solution that everybody could agree with?
I think what we said was pretty clear. Extend this, because the worst thing you can do in a recession is pass job-killing tax increases. Remember, taxes go up absent an act of Congress. And they could go up on everybody. I was a small business owner for 22 years. I talked to a lot of small business owners, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of money on the sidelines. People can't plan right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, which leads to unemployment.
You know, because I hear what you're saying about a lame duck Congress. You don't want lame duck congressmen to be voting on important things. On the other hand, unemployment benefits have run out for millions of Americans who are seeking jobs with unemployment really in the mid-teens, not the 9.6 that's reported. These are millions of Americans desperately looking for jobs. Do you support extending benefits to those millions of families so they can buy food for their kids?
Elliot, absolutely. Now look, though, here's the deal. Why is it that the Democrats who control Congress under Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid refuse to allow us to offer up an alternative that would actually pay for that extension of unemployment benefits? This is twice they've done that. We have options. We have alternatives. Why do you think it's okay for them to just shut out any alternative that would actually pay for that, which is how it's come to the floor?
Congressman, we have a point of agreement here. I just want to do everything I can to make sure people focus on this. So you would vote for a clean bill that says extend those unemployment benefits?
Now, Elliot, that's not what I said. I know you were a prosecutor. That's not what I said. What I said is...
I think that's what most people heard you saying.
Okay, what I said is, yeah, I could vote to extend unemployment benefits if they're paid for.
Here's what I'd like to do, since I'm thrilled you raised the issue of how we pay for things, because one of the issues I've been trying to grapple with, and I've been asking a lot of our guests here, how are we going to balance the budget? I know that you and your party in particular ran on a platform of balancing our budget, getting rid of the deficit. The tax cuts that you want to make permanent add a $4 trillion hole over the next decade, which, okay, I understand you're for it, but then I'm obligated to follow up by saying, how are we going to pay for it? So let's ask the easy one. Where do you stand on the Bowles-Simpson bipartisan budget deficit closing proposal that's been announced both yesterday and over the past week? Their concepts for closing that deficit. You for it or against it?
You know, first of all, Elliot, I'm not for or against something I haven't had a chance to read and fully understand, and I haven't had that chance. Second, they put forward some really bold initiatives that, frankly, both sides, or at least from what I had heard originally, Speaker Pelosi and others condemned right off the bat. But what they've done is really important, and that is this. They have begun to educate the American people the depth of the deficit and debt problem we face in this nation and the severity of the changes that are going to have to occur. So why is it that it's always an either or? Why don't we create a system here in Washington where both sides sit down, we bring everybody's brains to the table and say, how do we begin to put this country back on a path to where we pay our bills like families have to do? And when we take over in November with 87 new Republicans and a class of 63 pickup over Democrats, we'll have that opportunity to show how we will govern. Right now, we continue to be shut out of every discussion that takes place, and they continue to run it like they did that got them in trouble.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, I've got to disagree with you a little bit on that, because the commission that we're talking about was chaired by Erskine Bowles, who was the chief of staff in a Democratic presidency, and Senator Alan Simpson, one of the most conservative Democrats out there, conservative Republicans out there. And just today, Judd Gregg, a very conservative Republican senator, said he was for it. So this really is a bipartisan commission that has taken all the ideas you're talking about, and we've had several weeks now. The ideas have been out there. So which pieces of it do you not support? They talk about, raising the Social Security age in terms of benefits. Are you for that or against that?
Elliot, look, I think you have to take it all in context here and say, what is it that will move us forward? There are other proposals out there as well. So,
with all due respect, you just ran a national campaign that you're going to balance the budget, get rid of the deficit. I'm asking you for some singular ideas about how to do it, because you just added $4 trillion to the deficit with a tax cut. So I'm asking you for some ideas how to...
Elliot, look,
give us a couple. Give us a couple.
Look, you can go through. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're first going to pass a budget, which the Democrats did not do in the last year. That's where you begin to lay out the priorities. Second, we're going to break open the appropriations process so that members of Congress can actually go to the floor like they used to do and offer up those alternatives. This is about how we govern going forward, and you're going to see that happen under John Boehner as Speaker, and what we did not see happen under Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, and that's where we will have those specific ideas going forward.
Can we do this? Given that we've got a deficit over the next decade, only the next decade, of about $11 trillion, can you give me just ideas that would give me, $2 trillion in savings? Just a little old tip.
Just pick a number, Elliot. Here, look, why don't we just go in and as the president has now agreed with us, let's start by freezing federal pay. That's one thing. That saves you $30 million $30 billion over a period of time, whatever the number is.
But you have a congressman, we're talking trillions.
Elliot,
we're talking trillions.
Elliot, I know that. First of all, let's repeal then take over national health care. How's that? That's going to save
Congressman, Alan Simpson, your Republican conservative senator, agrees repealing it is going to cost us money. They want to strengthen many of this cost-saving provisions in there. That's Alan Simpson. Judd
That's
Gregg.
fine. Alan, they don't. Well, Judd Gregg nor Alan Simpson isn't going to be in the Congress next session, okay? And Alan Simpson's not there now.
Maybe that's why they want to tell the truth.
That's clever. Now, so here's the deal.
Thank you.
So here's the deal. You were a governor at one point. You know the kind of unfunded mandates that went into New York. You know the costs that go in there from the federal government. At some point, we're going to have a conversation with the governors about how to reform some of the big programs. You've touched on them. You know the big ones, the entitlement programs. They cannot be ignored.
Let's take Medicare, which is far and away the biggest driver of the deficit. Can you give us any cuts that you're willing to make in Medicare so we begin to make some progress in this $12 trillion chasm?
Elliot, there are things you can do with Medicare. There are things you can do with Medicaid. You can do those both in partnership with the states. On the Energy and Commerce Committee, when I was in the majority, we actually did a package that empowered the states to be able to save some money, a significant amount. It was in the billions of dollars by giving them some flexibility on how they operate.
Congressman, before we let you go, I just want to say one nice thing to you. I understand that one of the goals of the new House under John Boehner is to have a more transparent operation. Yes. And you've asked for recommendations from citizens who can go online and give their ideas, one of which is, hope you'll stop your partisan bickering. And I also understand you've reached across the aisle to Democrats, and so we appreciate that.
Yeah, we have, and I think they appreciate that. There's a lot of rank-and-file members around here that want this institution to work again. It's been broken for both parties' leadership for too long, and I really tell you, we're going to change how this place operates, and I hope that will lead. Process matters. I hope that process change will lead to better policy so that we can come together. As we've talked with this commission, there are things we can do legislative. That's what the people paid us to do, by the way. It is their house. It is their money. They should be a part of this. We're going to open it up, make it more transparent. We'll have a lot more of these discussions and debates.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Congressman. Still ahead on the program, scary